Welcome to another Pixel Maker tutorial. Today we're going to be going over scripting. We're going to do a scripting example. We're going to focus on the camera, smooth camera, and how to make that happen. We'll show a couple different ways. Also get you more familiar with the guide and with Microsoft Visual Code if that's what you're using. And with that said, let's get started. All right, so here we go with some smoothing camera. This is what it's going to end up like. I'm going to show a couple different versions, so here we go. Now this up top here is the more traditional way you've seen it using the action programs, where we have a move. It's kind of looping between these with unconditional links here. Of course, for a camera, we have a camera object, and then in the scene, the camera is following that camera that's required. But now we're going to do it in a script, okay? And so we can actually delete these and go with a script. Now there's a couple different ways that we can do it. We can do it from a runtime action that is constantly looping within this action, or we can do it in a link. And you can see that I have them set up in the link. Now the links you can actually do anything that you can do in a runtime action, except for you also have the option to actually, if a condition is true, send it to a new action. All right, and I'll show you one benefit real quick. So a couple things you're going to need is you're going to need Visual Studio Code or a text editor, and then you're going to need my guide open because we're going to be using those today. So with the guide open here, we're going to go down into the base script templates here, and you can see that I have a looping runtime action template. You can grab this runtime action template, just copy paste, and go to execute script and put it in there. And you don't even have to add anything, but this is where you would put your script, and then you can press enter or OK. And what this is going to do is it's going to constantly loop. So you could have that move object in script form, and it's going to be constantly looping within this action. Now let me show you one of the disadvantages to that. And that is if you hit play and go to show runtime log, you now have this log getting cluttered up every time that it loops and is basically repeating the code. Now this can be a problem when you're trying to problem solve something and you need the log more not spamming, this script. And so link conditions, running it in a link condition provides that kind of hidden layer for your script. Okay, so let me just, I'm just going to bring out the code. I'm not going to type any of this, but I'm just going to show you where these pieces all fit. But the first and most important thing is that you go to the base script template here, and you grab this power function. You're just going to copy it all, and then you're going to paste it. Now, since I can't control A in this guide or else it selects everything like that, I have saved it in another file right here. So I can control A, copy, go to my new file and paste. And now I have this power template. And so now we're going to get to scripting. So we know that we need a couple things. All right. We need to get the camera XY. Then we need to get the player XY, and then we need to move camera to player smoothly. That's basically the gist of it, right? All right, so let's get started. We're going to get the camera X and Y. So the first thing we're going to do is create a variable, and we're going to name it self, and we're going to set it equal to get self, and it's going to be a function. All right. Now I have a function down here, part of the power template, that basically returns all the stuff that you need to get that instance. Now getting the instance is the most important thing, not the instance ID, but the instance, which is the actual object, the actual instance of that object on the scene, if that makes any sense. All right. So we need that. So we have that, the self, and remember this, we're running this off the camera. So the self is going to be the camera. If we wanted to make this clear, I guess we could just say camera. All right. And then the next thing that we need is we need the camera X. So we'll just say cam X, and we could just name this cam just for short. All right. So cam X equals, and now we're going to use another function that's included in the power template, and it's going to say get instance variable. So this function is going to get you an object switch or variable, not the common one. I name it instance because it technically is getting the instance, not just the object, which is a blanket of what that instance is using, if that makes any sense. All right, so get the instance variable. And so what it needs, if you're using this, it pops up, because I have this function in here, it pops up with what the arguments are. And so it requires an instance, and then it requires a name or ID. Now, it's not going to pop up with what's actually required because of how JavaScript works, I guess. I don't know. I'm not used to coding or scripting too much in JavaScript. But so here we go. Get instance variable. And if you are wondering what exactly is required here outside that help, you can actually just scroll down and you can say get instance variable, and it takes an instance and a name or an ID. All right, and then it will run the check depending on what you give it. But this is nice because now you don't have to run 3 different variables to get the same outcome. You can now just run this one function. So let's go back up here and we're going to say get instance variable. We're going to get it from the camera. That's the instance we want. We're going to get it via name. We'll get this one by name. And so to do this, you need to have standard enemies variable switch ID reference here. And it's going to look like this up at the top. You're just going to scroll down to the object variable IDs. And this is the X, so we want the X coordinate position. So strings you always put in quotes. And so it's going to be basically quotations X coordinate position. And then we're just going to hit a semicolon because you got to end with semicolons. All right, so there is the camera X. We now have the value of that, which is its current X position, in this variable. So now we can just do the same with Y. We can just copy this, go down, paste, and just change the variable name. So Y, and then we could do Y coordinate. All right, so now our get camera XY is done. Now we can go to the player, get player. So var, we're going to say player. Now we're going to use another function in this called get other instance. And you can see that it requires a name or an ID as well. So we're going to get it by name because we know that it is player. And what I mean by I know that this name is player is in the scene here, the object's name is, that's what the name is that it's looking for. So the fact that it's named player, that is the instance it's looking for. All right, so now that we have that instance, oh, by the way, if you're wondering about this function, just click on it, highlight, and scroll down here, you'll see it, get other instance, and again, it takes a name or ID. So now we need the X, right? So player X, and we can just copy this one up here if we wanted, but we just need to change, we're not getting it from the camera, we're getting it from the player. And instead of this, we'll just show that you can actually use the ID number. So 9 is for the X, 10 is for the Y. And the more you start doing this, the more you start remembering these numbers, and the numbers are actually a little easier and safer once you memorize them. Okay, so we just need to change this to Y. And so now we have the player instance, we have the X variable value, and then we have the Y variable value. And so now that we have both of these, we can now move to camera smoothly. And in this case, we're going to use the Lerp function. Well, we're actually going to use a couple different functions actually. So the first function we're going to start is the set instance variable. Now, this is very similar to get, except for now we're setting. So I just made it easy. Get instance variable, set instance variable, very standard. And by the way, if you find that you would rather just say set var and make these shorter, by all means, you can go down here and you can change it to whatever name you want. And then you can start naming those functions appropriately. The name of the function is not as important as long as you're using the same name in the script that you're using. Okay, so we're setting the instance variable. Now, what exactly do we want? We want to move the camera to the player. So we want to set it from the cam instance. We want to set, look, we got to do this twice because we got to do the X and then we got to do the Y. So we're just going to do the X first, which we know from up here is 9. So we're just going to say 9. And then we're going to use the Lerp function. And we're going to open that for right now. Now, right here, it says that it has a start, an end, and then a time. And you can actually see it's actually just the first function. It's one of the useful functions, non-instant related basically. And you can see that the argument is a start, an end, and a time. And basically the starting place is going to be where the camera currently is. The ending place is going to be where do you want that camera to be in that particular frame. And then the time is going to be how long for that to happen. So we know that we want it to start from the camera's X. So we're going to say cam X. We want it to end at the player X. So player X. And then we want to do it at a particular speed. Now we haven't set this up yet, but I'm going to go ahead and say we want it to do it at the lerp speed. And there actually is no variable up there. So let's actually go and set some properties. So these will just be some properties right here. And we're just going to say var lerp speed equals, and we'll just say 0.1. And yeah, so now this speed, this time is going to be 0.1. And then we're just going to go like this. We're going to copy and paste this, but this time we're going to change it to the Y, right? Because we want to change the Y. We want to do from cam Y to player Y. And sometimes with your game, you might want cam Y minus a certain amount of pixels. And let me show you why in my particular case, because you can see that the player is floored. So the camera is going to be a lot lower than the center. So I'm actually just going to bring it up 48, which is one tile. And now the camera is going to be dead center right there. And so in order to bring it up, I need a minus, because minusing a coordinate is, or the Y anyway, is going up. So we're going to minus 48 from that player X value. And you could do that up here too. You could actually just do the player minus 48, and then you won't have to do it down here. Either way, I just kind of find this one to make a little more sense than right there. And so now with this, we can Control A and copy it and bring it in to our script here, the camera into a link. And I'll just replace the old one with this one. And we can playtest. And we can see that it is lerping. All right, now we could change this. Now that the main script is done, we really don't have to go back to here and mess with anything unless we really want to. I actually prefer coding in this editor and then copy pasting it than into here. And you can see why really quickly. It just can get really frustrating with the tabbing and stuff like that. So one thing that we can do though is quickly change values in here. So say we wanted it to lerp a little longer, we could say go to 0.4 here, and now we can play, and it's going to, or sorry, if we wanted it longer, we would make it less. So we would say 0.01. There we go. And now we can see how long it's going to take to lerp to that. To lerp to that spot. It's lerping every frame is what it's doing, and it's smoothly getting there across some time. So I found 0.1 to be a good just balance of that little bit of smoothness. Now you can even go further and you can create a variable in here that is a little more editor friendly to change. And you could just say that this will be the lerp speed, and you can set it initially to 0.1. And then in the code here, instead of putting it as a property right here, we would actually have to say get camera X, Y, and speed. And so when we get the instance here, we can go down to a new line and we can say lerp speed is going to equal get instance variable, and it's going to be of camera. And then the name is going to be lerp speed because we named it the exact same variable. And now we can actually delete that as well. And so now our lerp speed is pulling from this variable right here. Now with this whole setup, you can actually just go like this, copy this, and replace the lerp speed to be like that. And it would actually grab it. Say that this didn't exist. I'll just comment it out like it didn't exist. This would still grab that value. But I do find that sometimes it's nice to just have these shortened quick vars. So yeah, there we go. We're grabbing the lerp speed from the variable that we created. So I'll Control A this and bring it into our script here. And if we play test here, it's going to be going at the same speed. Now we can just go to variable right here. We can go 0.0, what did I do? 4? Or maybe it was, yeah, 0.01. Okay. So 0.01. And now we can see that it's lerping slow again. So you can control it with this in editor one by doing something like this, where you grab the instance from the editor. All right, so that is the first method. Now let's do a method. So I'm just going to delete this. Now let's do a method that we're sort of used to, actually using move object. And so we're going to switch to this one right here. Okay, so how do we get to this equation of what arguments to use for move object? Okay, because normally this was the one that we would use. We would do quite simply a move object. We would say move to the player, right? And we would say to adjust the position. So in our case, -48. We would want it to do it in the smoothing time, which was 0.1 or 0.2 or however you had it set up. We would want it to be the object self, and then we would want it to, and that was it actually. So then we would hit OK, and that was our move towards with the little bit of smoothness, but it would be constantly looping. So how do we get exactly all of these settings, and how do we do it in script? Okay, so this is where, again, my guide comes in handy. You can literally, I'm going to hit Control F, type in move object, and here we go. This is the move object runtime action. If you do need to know, there is a runtime action template here, and when you go down to move runtime action, you are greeted with a nice copy pastable script template. Now we don't need the IFE, which is the wrapper. All we need is just the arguments and the thing that actually makes it move. So this is the command that actually makes you use it. We're going to grab those and we're going to paste them. Now it didn't indent anything, so I'm going to, well, it indented some. So I'm only going to select what I need and then tab. And now everything should be set up nice and orderly. Now I default this method, this AGT instance ID. You could quite easily also do this. You could replace it with get self, and it would run the same thing because you're getting the self right there. So if that makes more sense, get self, and then with the args. You could also do this if you wanted to move the player object, for instance, get other instance player, and boom, it would now move the player. But for this one, we'll just do get self. Now, how do we know? This is a lot of stuff to go over, and it's one reason I picked this one is because of how intense this can be. And you don't even have to fill out all of these, but I give them all just so that it's easy. So the simplest way to do this is, since we've already set it up, this is what I would have done anyway. I would have come in here and I would have set it up exactly how I wanted it. Okay. Then I will make adjustments. So then I'm going to go to plugins and I'm going to grab the show log, which is right here. It's going to pop up right here. At this point, I'm going to half my screen, so we're kind of sharing. And then we're going to go to object here. You might have to adjust this out a little bit, but we're going to clear this out. And then we're going to open up our already set up runtime action here. And now here we go. We have all the guts that we want for our argument. So I'm going to go in here or I copied it. I copied it from the show log here. And now I'm going to go like this and paste it. And I'll need to tab these in. There we go. Okay, so now we have the exact arguments that we want for this to happen. So literally I can control A all of this. We can now remove this, or better yet, we could keep it and just skip it. That way we have the guts to refer to if we ever need it. And we can go to the script, control A, and copy it. Hit OK, and then we can playtest this. And here we go. We have a smooth camera smoothing. And the cool thing about this is we can go even further. So we can say, you know what? I like using the move object method, but I want the, let's see here. I want the duration. Well, the duration is in 300. So let's just say you want to up it a little bit. You would just change this to 60. For instance, let's just say. You could go in here, go all the way to the top, find the move duration 360 or 300. I don't know why I was saying 360. And this is where you would change it. So let's say, well, actually, let's give a bigger number. Let's do 300, for instance. 300 equals 1 second. So now it's going to be smoothing in 1 second. So now it's just like the Lerp, but it is, you know, as far as taking a little slower when we adjusted it. All right. So I think that is good for this video. We went over just a couple different ways. We went over the Lerp. We went over how to do an actual runtime action here. Yeah, I think that covers it well for this video. Also how to use the guide, standard enemies, how to read the switch variable reference. So yeah, we'll leave it here. We'll have plenty more scripting videos out there for any questions that you might have. Hopefully this really helps get you going in the right direction. Any questions, Discord, comments below, Steam forums, get you figured out. And with that said, see you at the next video.